Right, so I spoke a little bit about how I'd use Solubles, so the application of them. Let's have a little chat about a few little tricks that I've got up my sleeve and that we've developed at Nutrabaits, shall we? The first one is that we've got a new test liquid which we've been testing, and it's going to come to market soon with the Solubles, and that is a really exciting product. It's basically like a soluble activator, so it's a liquid that you put over the top of the Solubles, and it activates the Solubles and releases a plume of attraction around the Solubles as they break down. Now, the Solubles on their own give out loads of attraction as they are, but this new liquid is something else. It is basically a feeding signal for the carp. It comes off of the Solubles, plumes up in the water column, and the carp can't resist it. So putting a bit of that over your Solubles before you put them out there is definitely a winning tactic in my book. And the other one as well to think about is that what you can do if you want to slow the breakdown of the Solubles down is that just a little drizzling of oils, so some salmon oil, some hemp oil, will actually coat those Solubles to slow the breakdown process. So you can tailor your Solubles for the fishing which you're doing and how active you want them to be in a swim. Use the new liquid, the new activator liquid, if you want a really active bed of Solubles out there, or if you want a slower breakdown, maybe coat them in a little bit of oil, put them out there, just slow that breakdown a little bit more. And as I've already said, how often and when you bait with these Solubles is the key to activating your swim as well. So let's just have a little think here about Solubles. Hopefully everyone's getting a bit excited about how you can use these in your fishing. And let's have a little think about winter fishing, shall we? So we're moving into the winter period now. We all know that the fish's metabolism slows down. They still feed, their metabolism will slow down. And a high attract bait that's highly digestible is perfect for the winter time. So the Nutrabaits Solubles with the new liquid over the top of them gives you all of that attraction, but it breaks down into a paste, into a mush more or less. So the fish can't overfeed on them, or it's very difficult for them to overfeed on Solubles, which for me personally is key in my winter fishing. If you think about if you throw a couple of handfuls of boilies into your swim in the winter time, it can take hours upon hours upon hours for those fish to digest those baits. With a Soluble, they feed on one, it plumes up in the water column, all of those feeding signals go out, all of the attractants go out into the water, and they can digest it, they puff it through their gills, and they can feed on another bait. So in the winter time, I think the Solubles are a real edge for any angler that's out there fishing in the cold water. Get on the Solubles, start using them in your fishing, and start seeing the results that soluble fishing will bring to you. Right, so let's actually have a look at the baits themselves now. So this is the big fish mix, black pepper and caviar. And this is the standard boilies. This is a re-release of one of the Nutrabaits classics. It's been catching fish all around the country, all around Europe actually, since its re-release. And this is going to be my new go-to bait in the summer. Now you can see here that if I break it open, you can squeeze it between your fingers, and you can see there the actual profile of the bait there. It's got a beautiful aroma, loads of active ingredients in there, food ingredients, that's going to get the fish feeding on your spots. It's a very, very high quality bait, this one. Right, so let's have a little look at the new Solubles here. So this is the big fish mix Solubles, and as you can see, very similar colour. The texture, I can actually break these open between my finger and my thumb. They're not rock hard marbles that some people may think Solubles would be. They've got the same base mixes inside there, the same liquid package that the standard boilies have got, except through the tweaks and the process that we go through, it allows you to have a bait which will break down between 2 and 3 hours in the summertime, a bit longer than that in the winter time, and start releasing all of these food signals through the water column, getting a carp feeding. Right, so we're just going to show you now how I use the new soluble liquid to really activate and engage the baits that I'm putting out there. So rather than taking the liquid, there's the liquid there, and pouring over a whole bucket of Solubles, what I prefer to do is just take a bag and do it as and when I require it. So I'm just going to take a few handfuls of the Solubles, pop it inside the freezer bag. There we go. Pop them inside there, turn it around so you can see through the clear side. And I'm going to take the liquid, I'm just going to drizzle the liquid over the top of the Solubles there. Give them a good old shake. Now, one thing to make clear is that this liquid will not start breaking down these solubles. The liquid's been designed to coat the solubles, but not to actually break them down. So they're fine sitting inside this liquid here. They're going to soak all that in. And then what I do is I can use these to bait up using the spom. I can stick out the baits, or a little tactic that I like using is I actually use an old school method, which is the PVA string, and do a stringer. And a little 6-bait stringer of this is a perfect presentation to put out there. These will start breaking down, as I say, within sort of 2 hours. They'll be broken down and they'll be sitting in a nice little pile around my hook bait. So that there is just a very quick example of how you can use the new soluble liquid with the solubles to get extra attraction into your baits. So let's just take a little moment to talk about the best way to store your solubles. Now, obviously, your solubles, you don't want them to get wet. So you want to make sure that you don't get any rain on them, any moisture, because they will start to break down, and we don't want that. So when you open up your bag, they can stay inside the bag, and my preferred way of storing them is to put them into a bucket in the bag and then seal them up, making sure they're nicely sealed inside the bag in a bucket. That'll keep them nice and fresh and just the same as when you first open your bag of solubles. However, what you might also want to do is at home, store them in an air dry bag, somewhere that's obviously dry and warm, and that'll just dry out the baits a little bit more. It will extend the breakdown period slightly, make them a little bit more harder as well, and you can actually play around with how you prefer to have your solubles. Personally, I like to just put them back in the bag, store them in a bucket, seal it up, and I know it's ready to go next time I go fishing.